Before I start this video, I just want to make it clear that anything I do say in this video is not meant to discourage anyone who's thinking about becoming a filmmaker, or if you happen to be a filmmaker already, it's not meant to discourage you either. The things that I'm going to explain are things that I've simply been through. Some I've overcome, some I'm still working on myself, but either way, it's going to be helpful, or I think it's going to be helpful for people out there who may have been in my position or who are in my position now. Also, before I get into the detail of this video, I want to encourage you to have something that you can take notes from, because by taking notes, you'll be able to clearly identify the things that apply to you, and later on down the line, you'll be able to refer back to those things and make sure you're moving forward and not falling into bad habits and doing the things that you were doing before. So the very first thing that I want to talk about at the very top of the list is inaction. And the reason why I put inaction at the top of the list is because it's probably one of the easiest habits to fall into, but the hardest to break. Okay, so I'm sure we've all been there at one point in our lives when we know we must do something, we know we must take action, yet we experience this resistance, and it's this resistance that prevents us from doing the things that we have to do. What this resistance is, or why it happens to us, or where it comes from, I do not know, but I know that it's there, and we've all experienced it at some point in our lives. And if you're struggling to understand what I mean by resistance, a common type of resistance is procrastination. Now, there's no real method to completely eradicate resistance from our lives or to stop it from ever coming back, but at least we can take the necessary steps when we notice that we're experiencing resistance so that we can move forward, take action, and stop allowing this resistance to make decisions for us. And the simplest and most straightforward way of combating resistance is simply just to take action. And when I say action, I don't mean that you have to go in with the intention of finishing off what you have to do. For instance, if you're working on a project, don't go in with the mentality that you have to finish everything that you're doing in order to combat this resistance. In fact, that can work against you sometimes. What I find works for me is setting small goals within that project, and most of the time I work past those goals, and sometimes I even finish the project as a whole. So for instance, if you know that you have to edit a long video, just set yourself a small goal for editing one segment of that video, and what you find is most of the time you tend to work past that goal that you set out for yourself, and sometimes you'll even complete the task as a whole. So ultimately, by deliberately putting yourself in that situation for taking action, what you're doing is you're stimulating your brain for work, and you're going to be more equipped for work. On the contrary, by doing nothing, you can become frustrated because you know you should be doing something, yet you're doing nothing. Now, you don't want to work because you're frustrated, and you don't end up doing any work because of all this frustration. It's a vicious cycle. So if you find yourself procrastinating or experiencing resistance, the simplest, most straightforward thing to do, the most effective thing to do, is just to take action. Just take small steps on what it is that you have to do. Simple as that. The next thing is no plan. For some people, planning can seem quite daunting of a task. Some people don't believe that they can benefit from planning, and some people think that planning is a waste of time. But it's the lack of a definite plan of action that's often the cause of failure. Or at least I found out that a lack of a definite plan of action is often the cause of failure. Now, of course, there needs to be a balance between planning and actual work in order to get work done. But having at least a rough plan of what you intend to do is really gonna boost your productivity and your ability to get things done when you're going out, it could be doing a shoot, it could be that you're editing a video, anything that you're doing. At least have a rough plan. I mean, to at least see roughly where you're going with your work, you should at least have a rough plan. It's like, here's an analogy. It's like you're driving on the freeway or the motorway, whatever you call it, and there's no lights in the freeway or the motorway, and you only have these cat eyes in your lane, and you can see just ahead. Now, a rough plan is going to enable you to see just ahead, just enough so that you can steer yourself in the right direction. Having no plan, no cat eyes on the motorway or freeway, you don't know where the hell you're going, and you could just end up in a bush somewhere, which is exactly what happens most of the time when I don't have a plan. So, for example, you know that you have a shoot outdoors somewhere in 2 days' time. It would be a good idea to plan things like, what are the weather conditions going to be like? How are you going to get there? What route is it going to take you to get there? Are you thinking about what gear you're going to use? Are you thinking about some shots, a shot list possibly? Things, ideas that you're already thinking about before you go out and shoot? Are you working with other people? Do you need to let them know where to be, what time, so on and so forth? So obviously there's an abundance of things that you could plan. But like I said earlier, there needs to be a balance between planning and actually doing something in order to get work done. But I think you know where I'm going with this when I say at least create a rough plan, so at least when you arrive on shoot, you're not just clueless of what to do. You're just walking around like a headless chicken. You don't know what you're doing. People are going to lose focus. People lose trust in you, and you just look like a complete idiot. I've been there. It's happened to me. Hopefully it's not going to happen to you now that you've heard this. And I think you'll agree with me when I say that it's better to be prepared than unprepared. I mean, some people like spontaneity. Some people like to get up and shoot and think on the spot. But I think ultimately that leaves too much space for error and just craziness and misdirection and whatever you want to call it. The list goes on. So the next one is not enough action. I'm sure you've heard the term that practice makes perfect. Well, forget that. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect does not exist. It's a myth. Chuck it away, throw it in the bin, get rid of it. What practice actually makes for is improvement. Practice makes for improvement. And what you're definitely not going to do is improve as a filmmaker if you're not continually flexing those filmmaking muscles. And what I mean by that is just to practice. Practice, practice, practice. And so by continually putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and putting yourself to the test, and like I said, flexing those filmmaking muscles, you're going to become better at your craft. No one becomes better at their craft by watching videos. If you were like me in the beginning and you watched loads of videos, great. Watching videos is good for taking on information, but what you're not going to do is improve as a filmmaker in terms of your skill by just watching videos and not actually practicing the things that you've learned from those videos in the real world, out in the field with a camera in your hands. So the key takeaway is practice, 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 and forget about perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes for improvement. And what I actually do for myself is I schedule times of my day or times of my week where it's solely dedicated to practicing. And whether that's making a 1-minute sequence or editing a part of a video, either way it's practice, and it's going to help me to better my skill as a filmmaker in the long run. You know, it could literally be anything, the simplest thing. You don't even have to turn your camera on. You know, you could be practicing your camera movements, you know, just keeping that camera steady, keeping it close to you, getting those smooth shots like everyone likes. It's simple, just practice. Now this last one that I'm gonna get into is kind of a 3-in-1. It's self-doubt, the inferiority complex, and comparison. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like me that struggle to come to terms with the fact that before you get great at something, you need to start somewhere, no matter how bad you suck. And you're never gonna become great at what it is that you want to do by dwelling on the fact that there are people that are doing it better than you at the moment. That's gonna get you nowhere. It's not good for your psyche, and you know, it just makes you feel bummed out, and you know, you feel worthless. You know, well, some people feel worthless about it. And you know, while that might be simple to some people to understand, for some people it's tough to get their head around, especially when they're going through the inferiority complex. Take me and this video for example. This is my very first YouTube video. I have no views, no subscribers. I'm pretty sure someone's covered something like this before and they're probably doing it better than me. But the difference is I feel like I have something to say. I feel like I want to give back, especially because I've gained a lot of value from people who've put out this type of content. And you know, that's the thing that's enabling me to push forward through that barrier of self-doubt and, you know, comparison and the inferiority complex. It's helping me to push through that, and it's enabled me to make this video. I also think that if you're gonna do something, you've got to be doing it for the right reasons. And what I mean by the right reasons is, you know, some people might want to do something because they have something to prove, and that's not always the best metric to lead your life by. If you feel like you have something to prove to others and it's not really yourself, well, because you have no control over how they react or how they feel about what you're doing, if they don't take it in the way that you expect them to take it, that's only going to be disappointing to you, if you understand what I'm saying. So you should do things that are going to make you happy because you're making it for a reason that makes you happy. You're doing it for a cause that makes you happy, and not relying on others to be impressed or happy about something that you're doing, because ultimately that leads to disappointment. It can lead to disappointment. Also, try not to allow that inner conversation that you have with yourself that tells you, what are you doing? You know, you can't do this. You know, there's other people doing this that's much better than you. You know, you don't have the skill, you don't have the education, and you don't have, you know, the vision that these people have in order to do what they're doing. You know, don't allow yourself to have that conversation and take influence in your actions. You know, you can do it. You definitely can be as successful as the people that are out there. You can definitely be as skilled and talented as the people that are out there. It's just about, like I said earlier, taking action and breaking through that barrier. And the final point that I want to touch on is stop using other people's talent, other people's skill, especially pros, you know, especially people who have been doing it for a long time. Stop using their work as a measure of your ability. You have to understand, like I said earlier, no one was born a master of their craft. You know, they had to work to get to where they are. And by you comparing yourself to them at your level, at your stage, I'm assuming that you're an amateur. You know, you're never going to allow yourself to excel because you're always going to look at their work and feel disappointed about your work. So the best thing you can do is just, you know, I'm not saying that don't look at other people's work, because obviously that's inspiration that you can take away for you at the end of the day, as long as you give them credit. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is you've got to be you and you've got to do you. You've just got to put in the work. It's all you. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up everything that I wanted to say in this video. I hope that you gained some value from this video. Just a bit about myself. My name is Charles. I've been a freelance filmmaker for the past couple months. I've been filmmaking for about 2 years now, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. I decided to open this channel because I wanted to help people who have been in my situation, people who are similar to me right now, and even if you're better than me, even if you're a professional, maybe you can get a perspective that you've never thought of before by watching my videos. So if you gain some value from this video, I'd appreciate if you liked the video. And if you have any suggestions on how I can make my videos better, or if you want to see more videos like these, leave a comment and consider subscribing. The normal stuff, it's up to you. Anyway, thank you for listening to me for all this time, if you're still tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Sweet!